What is going on, everybody? We are back once again with another edition of Wrestling Republic's daily broadcast, and I am so sorry for the delay. This one is on me. I unfortunately had some Wi-Fi issues, but it's Survivor Series Saturday in my hometown of Chicago, and I'm excited. We got War Games, one of the big four pay-per-views on tap. We got the return of Randy Orton. We've got tons to get into, and so I need a panel to discuss it with me. I call it the Old Guys Rock Club today. Let's go first to Philly. We got Anthony Ricciardi, our head of opinions. How are you on this fine Saturday?
I'm doing all right. You know, it's kind of fun to cover Survivor Series, an event that so many years ago they considered possibly canceling as one of the core events because it wasn't selling the pay-per-views. It was pre-network. But there's been a lot of historical moments that have happened, debuts, returns. Be interesting to see if tonight we get another one. But it'd be fun to cover SmackDown, the lead into it as well.
100%. And we're going to get into a little bit of everything here too. We're going to dabble in SmackDown. We're going to dabble in Survivor Series. We're even going to dabble in Full Gear. And I got to send it out to my friend in Texas, Ignacio, because how are you first and foremost on this Thanksgiving Saturday? But we're going to get into Full Gear right here shortly.
Yeah, pretty good. No, feeling pretty good. I'm still chomping on Thanksgiving leftovers here. We did a Texas-style brisket, which I was really excited about. And that, you know, every month, like November, what I do occasionally, at least maybe a couple times a week, is I'll go back and I'll watch old Survivor Series pay-per-views. And I just like this. I know it was always like kind of like what Anthony said. It was kind of like the middle lackluster, not lackluster, but just the filler pay-per-view between SummerSlam and Royal Rumble. I think for a while that's what it became. But I like watching the old school style Survivor Series elimination matches. And there's been a lot of historical events. Montreal School Job and Screw Job. And I don't think I need to mention anything else. But I'm excited for the pay-per-view and excited for the show.
I would even add the debut of The Undertaker, Ignacio. You made a great point there. We forget about how historical of a pay-per-view Survivor Series really is, right? There's been some amazing things that have happened on Survivor Series debuts, like Anthony. The Shield too, even actually more recent history.
Sting made his WWE debut there. There've been a lot of moments, and obviously
a lot.
Yeah.
We got a comment here from our friend Cool Gamer. Hello, how are you doing, Cool Gamer? Good to have you in the chat. But before we get into SmackDown and Survivor Series, let's talk about the pay-per-view from last week, Full Gear. Ignacio, I'm going to toss it directly to you. I know you've had some opinions about this, and it's your time, man. Let us know what you thought.
Well, I mean, look, I'm not going to spend too much time on it because I know you guys have already poured your thoughts on the fan base and all that, but I'll just speak overall. And normally, if there's a pay-per-view on WWE, AEW, or otherwise, like I'll make it a thing. No matter what's going on, I'm gonna watch the pay-per-view. Like I'm gonna watch it live. I'm gonna sit down and watch it. And I just didn't. I was out of town at the time, but usually when that happens, if I'm out of town the day of a pay-per-view, I can't watch it. I'll immediately watch it the next day. Like as soon as I get home, I'm watching the pay-per-view. And I watched this one within a span of like 3 days because I just wasn't really compelled to watch. The AEW's not putting on compelling weekly television. It's not. The stories are lackluster, and leading into the pay-per-view, I believe the stories were lackluster, especially the one surrounding the main event, I should say. I just don't think that they're producing good television. I don't think they're producing a good product. I don't think the storylines are very captivating. Just to speak on a couple of them, the couple of the matches, everybody was talking about the match with Swerve Scott and Hangman Page, and I texted in the chat that I don't think I'm going to be watching any Swerve Scott matches in the near future unless he's challenging MJF for the world title, because I think he's a complete disappointment that he would want to involve himself in the kind of match that he had with Hangman Page that was utter garbage. I've been disappointed with Hangman Page for a very long time. The peak of AEW was Full Gear 2 years ago, 2021 in Minnesota. I was actually at that show. I traveled for that show, and that was it. It's been all down. AEW's been all downhill from there. Kobe said, well, I mean, they're not targeting you. You're not the audience that they're targeting, the type of individual that they're catering to. And my thought was shouldn't they? Shouldn't they try to be growing their audience? But they're only targeting one demographic. And I know that's been said on the show time and time again, but this is utter proof that they're only catering to one demographic. This match was the most phoniest thing that they've produced. The main event was silly. It was ridiculous. The thread that they posted or tried to present throughout the show, starting with the pre-show with MJF getting injured and then him coming back in the ambulance and Adam Cole's deal. It's just silliness and it's ridiculous and it's poor storytelling. And the match itself was okay, but I just felt like I don't have to watch this pay-per-view, and I haven't felt that way about any show in a long time. And it just goes to show, in my opinion, that it's going in the way of Impact, where Impact, for a time, I was really into TNA. And there just came a time around the time Hogan showed up that I was just like, I just don't want to watch or need to watch the show anymore. I'll skip 2 weeks and see what they're doing then. I think that's what it's coming to. And I never wish ill will or harm on anybody, and I never would. But I'll say this, that I hope, I don't want AEW to fail. I want Tony Khan to fail, because I want somebody to take over this company that has the talent that it has, that knows what to do with it and knows what they're doing, to take this company over and actually compete with WWE. And Tony Khan's never going to be able to do that.
You know, Ignacio, I agree. I can at least relate to a lot of the points you made too about the current product and especially the timeline you gave. The one that I do have to say I completely disagree on is I thought Hangman Page and Swerve told an amazing story, and that was a blood feud that got a blood feud type match. And the guy went in his home, right, and his little baby, like that image, and the promos. I do disagree with you on that, but that's kind of to each their own. You know what I mean? Like we don't have to agree that it was great, but I did enjoy that story at the very least.
That's the thing.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. I that was the one thing with this where I liked Hangman versus Swerve. It is debatable whether or not it needed to be as gruesome as it was, but I did understand why it went there because of the personal rivalry. And if that is the blow off to make Swerve, I got it. I had a bigger issue, and not that this is an AEW Full Gear review. I had a bigger issue with the main event in the sense that they said Max could not compete, but somehow Adam Cole, who's on one leg, somehow Tony Khan went, no, he's fine. He can compete in the main event. And I don't really think that helped when Max came back and on one leg, he beat Jay White. Like, I think that hurt Jay White more than just if they would have straight up wrestled and he would have got the better of him.
Yeah.
The fact that he beat him on one leg, I think that did more negative. But that lasting images of the Hangman Swerve one, I think that's probably the crown moment for them for that show. Honestly.
Yeah, it was in the biggest, but in my eyes at least, the only one that I looked at and I was like, you know what, that feud deserved that. They really hated each other. And we got a comment here from Numero on Superfly, though. The highlight of Swerve versus Adam was Prince Nana dancing. I wouldn't call it the highlight of it.
He said, I know dancers. It was a nice
I gotta admit, it's hard for me not to smile when you have an entrance that it's great. That's pure wrestling fun.
That's
in that sense at that time, right? Like, you know, and it's not a huge part of the match. It's just the entrance, but with the dancers and doing it cracked me up. I can't lie to you on that one. But either way, Ignacio, you brought up some great points about honestly the issues AEW has booking wise, and I do agree with a lot of what you said there. More, I was actually shocked. I agreed with more of what you were saying there than I expected to about that particular show.
Look, if I actually said what I wanted to say on the show, then Ben wouldn't be able to air it on YouTube. So
I mean,
I want to keep it.
Good point.
I want to keep it semi-clean, but it's just. I'll go back to real quick the pay-per-view. MJF, and I love MJF. He's one of my favorite people, but I just don't think they're. And I'll say this also. I don't want me to get off on a tangent, but there is no bidding war of 2024. He's signed with AEW. All right, he's not going anywhere. But I just don't like the way he's being produced or presented, or if it's his ideas or Tony Khan's ideas. I just don't think that this is the storyline. I'd have no problem with the ambulance spot as long as they would have presented it in a different way. But the whole thing with Adam Cole and by the time the main event came around, I mean, with that match with Serve and Hangman, let's put my personal feelings aside about it.
Yeah,
that match took the wind of the sails of the fans, because I think by the time the main event come around, they were dead.
That's a very good point. I would agree with that 100%. Yeah, no, I think that was an issue too. And it's an LA crowd, and it's late night in LA at that point. You have the fear of losing the crowd in general. It had to be about 11. Carter was there. I want to kind of ask him about that, and I'll probably text him about that after the show. But I want to say the main event went on about 10:30, 11. It was late.
If it ended, I think it ended at midnight Eastern.
Oh, so it would have been in the nines.
Like 9. Yeah.
So not as bad as I thought.
Yeah.
Not as bad as I thought there.
Yeah.
But still, you never know. With all the traffic right now because of the collapsed bridge, getting in and out of the Forum was not easy. I mean, going to Ontario, I told the story on the show before, right? For Dynamite, Ignacio, I don't know if you heard about that. I mean, me and Carter, it was a 45-mile drive to the Dynamite in Ontario. It took 2 hours and 7 minutes.
No.
Because of the traffic. That's not fun. But let's talk about SmackDown, because it is Survivor Series Saturday. We had the Judgment Day versus the Street Profits. I have always loved the Profits. Angelo Dawkins continues to impress me. I didn't think they needed new gear. Didn't think they needed this new attitude necessarily. I thought the Profits already had something special, but bell to bell, they're as good as any tag team in this business in my eyes. You have the powerhouse and the guy that can, the athlete. And so it's the perfect match of, I mean, that blockbuster in the that looks like the Doomsday Device is one of my favorite tag team double team moves in all of wrestling. Like it's pretty. It's a good looking move, and it's not too dangerous of a high spot, right? It looks just clean and smooth and exactly what I would like, right? Judgment Day, I still don't even view as a real tag team, but it's okay. I do love Damian Priest. Talent-wise, I think he's off the charts. And Balor, we need to figure out. And I don't know about Balor with the what's up with the towel in the back pocket. I don't get it. What are you, Jeff Hardy? I'm kidding. But Anthony, I'm tossing this one to you. How did you like this match? And what do you think about the future of the tag team titles here on WWE TV?
I thought it was an interesting choice to do this match on the go-home show before the pay-per-view, because realistically, the Street Profits have no story really going on other than their Whit Lashley. Like, there's nothing for them at the pay-per-view. So, like, realistically, the only way that they were going to win over Judgment Day would have been if the babyface team at Survivor Series interfered. So, like, realistically, you're like, okay, Judgment Day is going to win this because WWE typically does not have people lose momentum leading into a pay-per-view. And considering that the Street Profits have no momentum on anything other than this story with Lashley, that I don't know where this is going, personally. I don't know if Lashley's going to indoctrinate them more and they're going to be more heelish, or if he's going to get tired of them and replace them with somebody else, and then they're going to feud with that somebody else. It'll be interesting to see what they do. I know there are a few names that WWE supposedly has signed, but tag team wise, that I could see Lashley getting together with and the Street Profits feuding with them. But it'll be interesting to see where it goes. But as far as Judgment Day picking up a win, defending the tag titles, leading into a pay-per-view, I get why they did it. It's momentum. That's what they're doing.
100%. And I hear where you're coming from on that with 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 the Profits and Lashley. I don't know which team that would be, but I do think it's a really good idea. And then, interestingly enough, speaking of Bobby Lashley, our good friend Numero One Superfly was in the comments with where on earth was Bobby Lashley? Not saying he needs to be on SmackDown every week, but I at least want to know what happened to him. Excellent question. Where was Bobby Lashley? They're all dressed up in cosplay like Bobby Lashley, and he's not even there. You know, if they're going to be a unit, if they're going to work as a unit, he might as well be at ringside. That's all I'm saying.
He's probably protesting that they're not using Wall Street Profits, the name
that Wall Street Profits is the best name I've come up with in ages.
Yes.
That's the one. They got to be the Wall Street Profits. In the suits, right?
Yes.
It just fits, doesn't it, Ignacio? It's not a bad idea. I'm just saying.
Looks good, yeah.
But let's stay in
that look. I like that look a lot.
It's not bad. Yeah. Let's stay in the tag team division, though, by the way. Let's head over, though, across the Atlantic, because we had an all UK tag team match, Pretty Deadly in the Brawling Brutes. Even though it was contested here, but we had an all UK tag match, Deadly in the Brutes. I enjoy Pretty Deadly from an entertainment standpoint. I don't know if they're the best tag team as far as wrestling is concerned, but they do crack me up. Just the over dramatized stuff. It's funny. They do a good job of it, and they both are amazing at selling. And that's something that I think is often overlooked when we're breaking down wrestlers. And I think that's kind of brought them to the dance in a way that maybe wouldn't have happened otherwise. Brawling Brutes wise, can we please just call Butch Pete Dunne? I'm begging. I'm sick of saying Butch. It's a goofy name. He's Pete Dunne. Just let him be Pete Dunne.
I'm assuming this angle that they're currently doing may lead to what you want, but that's just a guess.
I'm hoping. Ignacio, what do you think? And do you think either of these two are the next challenger for the titles?
Probably, dude. I'll branch off what you said about Pretty Deadly, dude. I like Pretty Deadly a lot. Yeah. I've liked them since NXT. I like their presentation. I like their gimmick and a lot of people out there say like, well, I mean, they're goofy and they're silly, and that's not what you like. Bro, they're good workers. They know how to sell, like you said. Because when I look at Pretty Deadly, I think Honky Tonk Man. Like Honky Tonk Man was goofy Elvis impersonator guy, and he was a good worker. But he got monster heat, like white hot flame heat, especially when he became Intercontinental Champion. And this guy had the title for almost a year, and nobody ever beat him. He would always, slip under the radar and somehow manage behind the referee's back, nail somebody with the guitar without anybody noticing, even though there'd be shards of the guitar everywhere. But yeah, they're like in the same boat. I like them a lot. I like what they're doing with the Brawling Brutes, the breakup, because I think Pete Dunne's really overrated, and I don't think he's ever going to be like in the main event picture. But I think what's the other individual's name? I'm sorry.
Rich Holland.
Rich Holland. I think he has a lot of potential, big guy, and other people would say he's been called hazardous or what have you. But I think those incidents he's had with the one with Big E and then with the Pretty Deadly, I think it was just bad luck. I don't think he's dangerous, or else he wouldn't be on TV. If they really thought he was dangerous, I think they would have started send him back down to the Performance Center or what have you. But dude, they need to start building stars, and I like the fact that this is what they're doing. They're gonna start building some stars in Rich Holland. Maybe he can be a big time heel, because I can see him in that role if they change his persona. So I'm excited for this. I like this. The match is okay, but I mean, I like where they're going storyline wise. This is what keeps me watching WWE every week.
I agree. The storyline is fun. I do disagree on Pete Dunne though. Not that I don't see him as like a main eventer or face of the company WrestleMania guy, but I could see him easily in a world championship picture, Intercontinental title, United States title type of situation, just because his belt to belt. His moveset is so unique and so cool, and he sells. He's an underrated seller, Ignacio. I would actually give him a little bit more credit, because yes, he's the broserweight, so size wise, to your point, right? Ridge has the body and everything, but that stocky build, and then you add in like the small joint manipulation and the calculation he has in the grappling moveset that he possesses. I actually think Pete is a little bit better than you might see, but I do agree that not like main event.
Yeah.
Maybe once or twice, but not like carry the world title. I totally agree on that assessment, at least now, unless something changes, right? But with that, let's talk about the Grayson Waller effect, followed
Do we
by
have to?
yeah,
I have to.
Anthony's got it. Followed by the tag team match. I will say Kevin Owens is hilarious.
Mhm.
He's so dang good on the microphone and so dang versatile on the microphone. He might be the most underrated in all of wrestling on the microphone. His timing, I mean, we talked about it before the show, Anthony. When he does you know what happens when you say a guy's name the third time. Like, and then the music hits. It was one of the most stealth one-liners that I dug it. Like, it's too funny. Like, you know what happens when you say someone's name 3 times, and then boom, LA Knight's music. Like,
Yes.
it was perfect. I just dug that. It's funny.
Yeah.
Like, comedically, he's better even than I realized at times. How did you like the match though? And then honestly, KO and LA Knight had good chemistry. Is one thing that I thought was kind of funny. Like, that might be a fun rivalry at some point, even though they just teamed last night.
Yeah, KO is somebody that I've always liked. He's sarcastic. I'm sarcastic, so I relate to that. And you know, the combination of LA Knight and KO as a tag team, they might be pretty funny and entertaining as a team. If that's the direction they would want to go, could they take the tag titles off the Judgment Day? I think it's a possibility. It's probably one of the most interesting teams you could possibly take the titles off of them to do, if that's the direction you would want to go with it. You know, KO breaks the fourth wall. He loves doing that. You know, saying, you know what happens when you know, name somebody 3 times. Waller is somebody that I think has a bright future. Theory for me, and you know, I was a supporter at one point. I kind of have given up on him. I don't think you can get him over. They've tried so many times. They've repackaged him. They sent him to NXT twice. They've done multiple things. In a situation like this, Waller's the star out of the two at this point, and it's a shame because Theory's technically younger than Waller, but I think Theory almost is damaged goods at this point. Again, this is another situation where, you know, KO's and LA Knight have momentum. I understand why they went that direction. So it'll be interesting to see where they go with this, but I could definitely see KO and Knight possibly being the team to dethrone Judgment Day, actually, especially since there's history there, especially on the KO side.
It's not a bad call. That could be fun. And then the turnaround rivalry, I think, between Knight and KO, whoever you pick to be the heel, is a fun one on paper as well. That you know what I mean? Even if it's a short reign, I don't necessarily love throwing 2 singles guys together as a tag team. I've mentioned that in the past, but I don't hate this one so much because in a weird way, they kind of had like a nice little chemistry last night.
I think what you could do with this is if you take the tag titles off of Judgment Day, you build it up. Ultimately, I think Knight's future is with that U.S. title with Logan. I think there's a feud there.
Oh,
and
yeah.
then you could throw KO in there maybe after it. Maybe KO goes back to being a heel, and then they could feud over it. It'd be interesting to see what they do with this.
I just want to see KO stun him into oblivion too, more than anything. That'd be delightful. Just absolutely stun him. I hope he sells it like a madman too. I'll give Logan credit if he does do that.
I think he would. I think he would.
I think he would too.
No.
Let's move on and let's talk about. We got the Carlito, Dragon Lee, Santos situation. Carlito, I said on yesterday's show, I want Carlito spitting apples again. I want
his music
Carlito.
back.
I want Caribbean cool. I want the music back. If we're gonna get Carlito, I don't want Diet Carlito stuck, you know, as the third guy. And I want the full sugar. I want all the sugar from Carlito. Yeah. You know, like that's just. And so I hope this might be the start of that. A little angrier Carlito comes back. Maybe he's a little too cool for his.
I want Caribbean cool Carlito. I don't want new Carlito. Yeah,
absolutely. Dragon Lee, I do think is immensely talented. I really do think Dragon Lee is an impressive in-ring talent. I did not realize he was so good on the microphone either. He didn't speak last night, but I did not realize that before. Like, he's underratedly awesome on the mic.
I would take him over Roosh, his brother.
I would 1,000% every day of my life.
Mm-hmm.
It ends up being him and Santos. How did you feel about the match, Ignacio? How do you feel about the future of the LWO in general?
I think I mentioned this a couple of weeks ago. Like, I haven't been too favorable as far as the presentation of the LWO. Here, I thought that they were going to be this big time kind of semi big time faction, maybe to feud with the Bloodline or Judgment Day, and they just been jobbing to everybody left and right. You can't remember the names of the guys in the tag team because they never wrestle, and they lose. Selena Vega, it seemed like they were going to do something with her, and she had that big pop in Puerto Rico, and she seemed like she had some momentum coming off of that, even though she lost. But I don't know, it's just too many stops and starts with them, and I'm glad this is coming to an end. I am kind of disappointed. By the way, before I say this, I agree with Dragon Lee. I think he's an immense talent. And he speaks English, and I didn't know this. I think me and Anthony talked about this a couple of months ago, that I didn't know if he spoke English or not, but he does speak English, and he's good. So I do think he has the chance to be a big star. He's, like I said, immensely talented, but I don't like the fact that, and I knew this was going to happen, that they were going to kind of drag him into this storyline, LWO storyline. I really didn't want them to. He was doing pretty good, doing what he was doing on his own, and hopefully it's just to finish off this LWO storyline. I didn't want him drugging this because I didn't like it. Real quick, did I miss something? Did Carlito get injured, and that's why he's not going to be in the match or something?
Yes,
that's the story they're going with.
Well, but I mean, is that just storyline, or is that he's really hurt?
I believe storyline.
Okay. Yeah. Well, that's a good thing because I haven't.
Honest, I don't even actually 100% know though.
Character.
I don't 100% know. I don't 100% know.
Oh, okay.
But I do believe it's kayfabe. So
I think it's kayfabe, but I can't swear to it either.
I haven't been too favorable of the character. I think it hasn't been connecting that well with the audience, at least not like it did before. So I hope they revert back to Carlito's old persona. But yeah, I didn't want them. It's like they want to engage or enhance the Hispanic audience. That doesn't mean you have to shove all of them in one segment or one storyline, right?
Yeah.
Dragon Lee was like doing pretty good on his own, but I like him a lot. I think he's going to be a star. I think Santos Escobar is going to be a star. I just hope whatever happens tonight, it's the end of it, and we can start, building up new stars. I'd like to see Santos Escobar against LA Knight. I'd like to see Dragon Lee, go up against Logan Paul, or give him a shot at the big time, because I think these guys are going to be pretty darn good. So overall, I haven't been favorable to storyline, but I'm excited for the match tonight. That I am, and I like where it's headed. I don't like where it's been, but I do like where it's headed.
I totally agree, and I think you made a really great point about that too. I think the storyline's been like a little, it's ebbed and flowed, it's been more roller coastery than like linear building wise, right? It felt like a real peak when Zelina had the match in Puerto Rico, like you mentioned.
Yes.
Right, and then down the hill again, and then, like you said, week in, week out, the tag team, Cruz Del Toro and Joaquin Wild. They seem to be jobbed out often, right? But then you have the debut of Carlito, and that's a little bit of a high, but then they don't do much with Carlito. And then, right, it's like, it's just ebbed. And then even like the Ray and Logan, like in the middle got muddy.
I do have to say, Escobar, to me, his sweet spot's as a heel. Like his promo, like that's his sweet spot. He shouldn't be a babyface. Like him as a heel feuding with Dragon Lee, if they did something with that, a series, I think that could elevate both guys.
It's interesting. Part of me, when he won the Cruiserweight tournament and then revealed the mask on NXT, part of me wishes that they could have almost recreated that on the main roster. Because that to me was like such a great moment. It was really cool how they did it, how he did it, how he renamed himself, and it made Legado del Fantasma feel like scary in a way.
Remember the
You know?
guy that he beat in that tournament with the mask. There was that great story of Drake Maverick who got released.
Yes.
And he was in the tournament, and it was like this was his last chance to save his job with the company, and it was extinguished by Escobar doing the heel turn. Like, that was such phenomenal storytelling right there.
It was. It was.
And,
it was awesome.
Yeah.
If you could recreate something like that, I think it would be just beneficial for all parties involved. But let's talk about the main event from last night's SmackDown, and then we'll kind of get into we'll finish out the show with a little bit of Survivor Series talk, a little bit of War Games talk. Let's talk about Bayley and Asuka versus Charlotte and Becky. If you'd have told me a couple years ago after Charlotte versus Becky at Survivor Series, speaking of Survivor Series history, that they would be on a tag team on WWE TV in 2023, I would have laughed in your face, and I would have been wrong for doing such. But I would have laughed. I mean, how can you not? It was out of left field. It was far out of left field. This pairing, it makes me more excited for the women's Survivor Series match. I enjoyed the match last night. Bayley teaming with Asuka and the hug backstage in the segment cracked me up when Asuka put her arm around her.
Yeah.
It was good stuff. Anthony, I'm going to toss it to you. How do you feel about this, and how do you feel headed into the women's Survivor Series War Games match?
Yeah, that's the thing. This I really enjoyed this. They all night they played up the Becky and Charlotte. Are they cohesive? Because we know how close they were back in the day, in the NXT day. They were part of the 4 horsewomen of NXT. And there was that falling out. And it was very public. The exchange of the title, the women's titles, and all the reports were coming out, all the dirt sheets were coming out saying that there's legit heat there. And realistically, Becky and Charlotte have been kept away from one another for years since that Survivor Series match. And that match, in a lot of ways, a couple of years ago, felt a lot like the Shawn Brett match from '97. Going, we don't like each other, but we're willing to work and play this up. But they've been kept away since. And Bayley coming out and throwing the digs, the heat of going, when I was with you, Charlotte, you buried Becky, but I didn't tell her. And every time you and I were together, Becky, you took digs at Charlotte, but don't worry, I didn't tell her either. That was tremendous. And them playing it up and them losing, which I think was the smart move and how they lost, playing that all up of going, are they not friends? Now, I have no idea. And I don't think any of us really know whether or not, are they just being professional, or in real life has Becky and Charlotte at least buried the hatchet? Or are they at least on, cordial terms? None of us know. Because all the speculation leading into Survivor Series is everyone jumping to the conclusion, is Punk going to be there? No one's really paying attention on this aspect of the Survivor Series match. I think it's going to be really good. I do think that there's enough talent in this match that it should be a decent match. There's also the speculation, will Damage Control turn on their leader? Will they kick Bayley out? There's so much question of going, who's going to turn on who, if someone's going to turn on who. There's enough intrigue in there that I think it helps the match as a whole, at least the build up, because you really don't know where they're going to go with this. And I think that's compelling. That's interesting. It's storytelling. Whether or not they're able to deliver, we'll see. It's only a few hours away, but we'll find out.
It really is compelling, and you made some awesome points there. I do think it's like this match compared to even the men's match is going to have some funk. Somebody's turning on somebody. There's allegiances are, in my eyes, more in question in this match team-wise than in the men's match. While it's close, who's going to turn on? I mean, you have Charlotte, Becky, just tension. You have Bayley and everybody tension. Bayley is so dang good. It's because she can just make your skin crawl whenever she wants, but then she can also make you laugh. And like the charisma is off the charts. We've talked about overrated, underrated on this show often. I've always felt Bailey underrated. Bailey is as good as anybody.
I gotta be honest. I don't think it's likely, but watching Bailey talking to Charlotte and Becky last night made me want for them to possibly bring in Sasha Banks to be with Bailey and to feud with Becky and Charlotte. Because we never really got that dynamic. And we know Becky and Charlotte were the ones that were like this, and Bailey and Sasha were the ones like this. So it would make sense. It's almost like Shawn Michaels and Triple H feuding with the Outsiders.
I think
like
it's a great call.
That would be the comparison that I could think of off the top of my head.
Yes, Ignacio, I got to ask you too. What did you think about the segment last night? The build. How do you feel about the Women's Survivor Series match headed in? And I mean, who's going to turn on who tonight? Because somebody is, right?
Yeah, I think so. But I'm thinking more in the men's match, and I think we'll get to that in a little bit. But and then if somebody turns in the men's match and somebody turns in the women's match, now you got two turns, and I think that's a little bit too much. I don't like this the damage control storyline, and I know you have had your feelings about it too. But it's just like hopefully it comes to an end tonight, or it changes course. I just think they threw this match together for the sake of having a women's War Games match, and I don't think that should be the case. I don't think if it doesn't call for it, don't do it. You can do it later, but I said it a couple weeks ago, is not everything has to be equal. Is that you don't have to have a women's War Game match the same time as you have a men. You can have it later on. You could do it to pop a rating on a Raw or on a SmackDown, but it just seemed like a little bit thrown together. It seems like they kind of added some spice with the Becky Lynch and Charlotte storyline deal or angle because the match needs it. I don't think it's very compelling. I don't think particular people are looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to Bailey separating from Damage Control if that's going to be the case. I would love Sasha Banks to come back. But then look what happens to the women division. You're reverting back to kind of the old guard. They're depending on Charlotte, Becky, Bailey, and Sasha to lead the pack now again, because they haven't built any stars other than maybe Bianca Belair. And I think, her
Ripley,
her popularity. I don't say popularity, but I don't think she wasn't what they hoped for. I mean, she had the title for a year and all that, but I really don't think she was ready for that spot yet. And now they got Jade Cargill coming in, and she's supposed to debut in NXT, so hopefully that turns into something. But I don't think bringing Kairi Sane back, and I don't like Io Sky. I think she's highly overrated. I think Kairi Sane's highly overrated. They need to start building some female stars, because it seems like they're reverting back to the same four that brought it to prominence, and I think that's going to be an issue.
That does. There's a lot of sense there as far as relying on the exact same four, right? We've seen a lot of those matchups. I think to Anthony's point about seeing it in a tag rivalry is about all that's left as far as stones to be unturned with those four.
We never got a four-way with them, did we?
We did never get a traditional four-way, but they've all been right. That would be another one.
Yeah,
and the only other one that I would add would be if somehow the Four Horsewomen thing was going to happen ever, right? The MMA versus wrestling deal. But I mean, that I think is more out of the question than any of the potential Sasha Banks stuff. Is what I would say. And now another point that you made, Ignacio, that I found really interesting though, was about this one being thrown together. I kind of have the same complaint about the men's match. We have a bunch of single stars that do not like each other on the babyface side, right? We have a bunch of single stars that do not, they should not like each other.
In all fairness, though, Clark, traditional Survivor Series teams were thrown together, so
right?
It's not, so I don't have too much of an issue with that.
Even War Games, right? When you look at the WCW team versus the NWO team, it wasn't
the Horsemen against whatever baby faces. Yeah, that's what it was.
It does exist, but I've even just for me, my one little nitpicking complaint would definitely be I'm like, well, Cody and Seth hate each other, and Jay Uso has pretty much screwed them all around at various points. Like all of them.
It does add a layer in there because you're adding Orton into the mix, which he is the Viper. So
if there is going to be a turn, I would not mind a heel Viper.
I
need.
Think my guess, and this is strictly a guess, I think Orton is friendly with Cody. I'm almost thinking we get it becomes an annual tradition. If Cody finishes the story the night after Mania on Raw, that's when Orton turns on him.
Ooh, that's not a bad idea. I think, and it's funny because I actually agree with Ignacio on building more young stars on the women's side, right? Where, you can't rely on the same four. As great as they all are, you just can't bank on that forever.
True, but at the same
I think we need an injection of veteran poison from the Viper on the men's side. At least as far as rivalries are concerned. I actually think it's, in a weird way, the opposite. I think we need some veteran, right? Edge is gone off the roster now. Daniel Bryan obviously left long ago, but you know what I mean? Like, veterans wise, if you're looking at Roman Reigns being the most experienced guy that shows up on SmackDown every 3 weeks, that's, and having Randy Orton's influence back, maybe even as a heel. I really think as a heel. As much as he's going to get a babyface pop, I also said this yesterday, and I'll repeat it again. Chicago fans do not like St. Louis. There is a chance he gets booed anyway.
I think there's a possibility.
There's a very good chance he gets booed anyway.
Yeah.
I think he's going to turn because I think he's going to turn on Cody because he's going to be to Cody's program leading up to WrestleMania.
Yeah, that would be exciting. I think too. It would be kind of cool. I wish there was a way he could almost like tongue in cheek start doing a legend killer thing. Like, I'm going to kill your legend before it even happens. You'll never finish the story.
Yeah, that'd be
to really bring out the story. That leaves the opportunity for Cody to continue to tell the story in a way where he's not directly feuding with Reigns. I actually think that's a route that makes the most sense in my eyes. You'll never finish the story. You're going to have to face the legend killer, right? Viper, legend killer, whatever you want, but you know what I mean? I'm going to kill this legend before it ever happens. Yeah. And then that's a platform where Cody on the other side is able to actually fully express the story, which was my biggest complaint about the matchup between him and Reigns last year. Is you had to have done your research. You had to be hardcore fans like the three of us to understand the depth of the story at the time because it wasn't played out on TV fully. That's just right. That's a car that you can drive to tell that story along the way without shoving it in our face, telegraphing it, right? But you will get more familiar with what is the exact story that he's finishing. And not that we don't know it. I mean, but just the general casual fan, I feel like, right? It was built, but it wasn't the whole story. This is Rocky 2 now. Tell the whole thing.
I think the documentary helped. The documentary
helped a ton.
Yes. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. They do it also as an avenue, they do it so they can get fans, casual fans or whatever, to go rent or buy Peacock to watch the documentary, to go watch, to get the WWE Network, and if you're outside the U.S. or get Peacock for the WWE Network. So who is this Dusty Rhodes guy, and how is he involved in this and all that stuff? That's what they try to do. I don't know how many times it happens or whatever, but it's a pretty good attempt.
I think that would be I think that is the most direct avenue back to finishing the story with Reigns, because then it really, we lock back into the actual story itself. If Orton starts to attack that, right? Because of the history too with Legacy and the multi-generational thing, the parallels in that sense. I mean, you could even have Orton, which would be delightful in my eyes, be jealous of like, oh, you thought your father was better than mine? Right? Like,
isn't it going to feel like, if he has to go through Orton, isn't it going to feel like a repeat of what he went through with Brock?
A little bit, but I think the difference is that with Brock's not second generation too. So that has less to do with the Dusty stuff. the trials was Brock's part of this story, right?
Yeah.
This Orton has the multi-generational aspect where you can bring all that back up on television in the story, right? You can tell the story that way. It's about being, whether it's, the best second generation right? I mean, if you're Orton, you can start digging at the royal family line from the entrance music, right?
Yeah.
Like you can immediately, there's so many little, and it brings it right back to the forefront. And then once he gets by Randy, that story's still in our head, and it leads you right into Roman Reigns. And then you have Rocky 2.
In all fairness, the Ortons are not royalty compared to the Rhodes.
No, not at all. But not at all. But knowing Randy, and given his own resume too, the way he can lean into it, like he could even go as, if you want to get real nasty, like, hey, the difference is, look at me, I actually outperformed my father as far as accomplishments
and grandfather,
and right, you know what I mean. And you can get real vicious in that one. That to me, I'm telling you, is the way that I would go about it as far as Cody and his future headed into Mania. I'm so excited for Survivor Series. I know we all are. That's actually does bring us to the end of the show. We only got a minute left. Thank you, everybody. If you haven't already liked and subscribed, please do. We will be back same time, same place, 15 minutes earlier, though, actually on time this time, because I will have my technical issues under wraps by tomorrow morning. Enjoy Survivor Series. I hope everybody enjoyed Thanksgiving. On behalf of Ignacio, Anthony, me, Clark Taylor, thank you so much, and we will see everybody soon.